Ladies and gentlemen, you should hang your head in shame. If you live in the US, pay taxes there, and you have exercised your right to vote in the last elections. That's because crooks and war criminals that you have elected have now truly swung into action to work for a foreign country, even when firefighters are struggling to contain California wildfires due to the paucity of funds. Because you don't have funds. You've given all your funds to Israel. I mean, what timing? The US is hit by a calamity. Hundreds of thousands of people have had to evacuate themselves to safety. Many people have lost their lives. Los Angeles has turned into a ghost town. But Israeli agents serving as congressmen and congresswomen have decided to work on far more pressing assignments. They moved a bill in the House of Representatives to act against the International Criminal Court and its prosecutor Karim Khan. Why? For issuing arrest warrants against bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister Yoav Gallant. Legislators in the lower chamber of the US Congress passed the bill called Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act by an overwhelming margin, 243 to 140 on Thursday, in a signal of strong support for Israel. 45 Democrats, yes, 45 Democrats joined 198 Republicans in backing this bill. Not a single Republican voted against it. The bill will now head to the Senate, where the Republicans have already gained majority. The man who has brought this bill is someone called Brian Mast. Now, who is Brian Mast? This criminal has been elected to serve in the US Congress by Americans, by you. But he is someone who has previously served in the IDF, the world's only organized army of terrorists. Yes, you heard it right. He is an ex-IDF personnel and now uses his power as a congressman to lobby for Israel. This Zionist and Israeli national regularly turns up to work dressed in IDF uniform. You can see it on the screen.
What's with your threads today? Can you tell us anything about those? Charlene's got her flag. I've got my uniform.
No wonder an ex-US soldier recently confronted him to say that he was in fact an Israeli agent working as a congressman.
Hi, my name's Josephine Gilbo. I'm a 17-year Army veteran. Are you an Israeli spy? Are you spying on the American government for Israel?
Why would you even ask that?
Because I'm a former intelligence officer. I have read documentation that points to you actually having allegiance to Israel and not America.
That's a very ridiculous question. My allegiance to the United States of America has been clear.
Has it?
I don't know, has it? Did you almost give your life for America?
Absolutely.
Because I almost gave my life
So
for
did
America.
I, 17 years in the Army. Why are you continuing to accept donations from Israeli citizens like the Falek family from Miami?
Israel is really a tremendous ally.
Israel is not our ally. So we just approached Brian Mast and I asked him, are you spying for Israel? And of course he immediately jumped to his injuries that he received in Afghanistan. While I do sympathize, I do question what he's doing for our country now after witnessing the narrative that has been coming out of his mouth for nearly a year and discovering that his main donors are Israeli citizens. He felt disrespected because I refused to shake the hands of someone who is complicit in genocide, and he also refused to answer the question.
According to AIPAC tracker, this former IDF personnel, now serving as US congressman, received a whopping $674,000 in funding. From whom? From pro-Israeli lobby groups, including the AIPAC. Screenshot. You have to hear the speeches of some of these crooks masquerading as US congressmen when they spoke in favor of this bill. This is Tim Burchett from the Republican Party. He's shamelessly highlighting that there was a reason why the US and Israel were not part of the ICC. That's because international rules must not apply to these two countries. I'm not saying it. It's his words. Who are these two countries? The US and Israel, two of the biggest rogue nations in the world. Such is his guilty conscience that he highlighted in the same speech that he had no connection with the APAC.
Speaker, Chairman, thank you and Mr. Roy for bringing this important piece of legislation to us. Let's be clear. H.R. 23 is very clear. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, they don't believe Israel has the right to defend itself from terrorists or those that threaten to destroy Israel's way of life. The United States and Israel are not members of the ICC for good reason and without accident. Mr. Speaker, it's a dadgum sham court is what it is. These decisions by the ICC are reckless, and they not only put Israel at risk, they put Americans at risk as well. The United States, with our new Congress and new administration, is not going to put up with these international organizations putting us and our allies in harm's way. Hamas chose war, and dadgummit, Hamas got war. The ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, has made a parody of justice, and he needs to find his place or we will help him find it. And I know when I get back to the office, I'm going to get text or contact from people saying that my APAC handler told me to do this, and I'll probably get my APAC handler in trouble, but I don't even know who the heck he or she is. The truth is, this is right. America should be on the side of the right. And for anyone to stand in the way of this important piece of legislation, I think owes the American public an explanation, and he owes especially your Jewish constituency. I fully support H.R. 23, and I look forward to passing it here shortly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
But Tim Burchett is cheap, right? You have to see that. He's very, very cheap. Israeli lobbies have bought his conscience for just $23,361. And even though he says he doesn't have any connection with the APAC, this is what he tweeted in March 2020 when he welcomed an APAC delegation to his office. He proudly shared this photo, which you can see on the screen, and wrote, I quote, "The United States has a strong Middle East ally in Israel. Maintaining the US-Israel relationship is important for so many reasons, and I am proud to support our Israeli friends. Thanks for stopping by APAC." End of quote. Another US Congressman, Chip Roy, he too made it abundantly clear that even though he may have been elected to serve the US interest, his loyalty was with Israel.
On this particular issue, which is critically important for not just our friendship with our ally Israel, but also our own national security, the protection of our own men and women in uniform. Let's be clear about what is happening at the so-called International Criminal Court right now. It has taken unprecedented action of issuing arrest warrants for the sitting Prime Minister and former Minister of Defense of our friend and ally Israel. Let that sit in for a minute. This is an entity, the International Criminal Court, that has no jurisdiction over the people of the United States, should have no authority over our people, no authority over the Prime Minister of Israel. Yet it is extending into the people of Israel's business and defending their interest against violent attack by Hamas, which we define as a terrorist entity, which, as the chairman just pointed out, has killed American citizens and holds American citizens hostage as we sit here today. And somehow it is not a priority for the people of our country that we represent for us to be here on the floor of the House defending our men and women in uniform, defending our citizens, defending our ally Israel and the Prime Minister of Israel from a politicized witch hunt by the International Criminal Court, which again should have and doesn't have any jurisdiction over our people or the people of Israel. I would remind the gentleman from Massachusetts that 42 Democrats voted for this legislation last year. If this is such a crazy piece of legislation, perhaps the gentleman would like to have an inward-facing conference on his side of the aisle. It is very clearly a bipartisan interest to protect our people and the people of our friends in Israel. I would note that our problems aren't just the dangerous terrorist organizations like Hamas, but these international organizations given power over our citizens and our way of life. Not just the International Criminal Court, but, for example, UNRWA and other international organizations, without which Hamas wouldn't have many of the resources it needs to conduct these violent attacks on Israel and our own people. When the gentleman from Massachusetts talks about the plight of the people in Gaza, we should be reminded of the massive piles of pallets of food and relief that are stacked up because the United Nations is too incompetent to move those pallets, and remind our friends of the extent to which Hamas has been taking those resources and not distributing them to the people in Gaza. The fact of the matter here, this legislation is inherently America first. We have had situations where we've had American soldiers and our people targeted by the ICC. It will happen again if the House of Representatives and the Senate and the President don't take action to sanction the ICC to prevent this from happening again in the future. I appreciate the support of the chairman. I appreciate the support of virtually every member of the Republican side of the aisle. I appreciate the support of the 42 Democrats last summer. I look forward to a larger amount of support from Democrats when we vote on this today. I yield back.
Like Tim Burchett, Chip Roy too has mortgaged his conscience to Israel quite cheap, for just $38,739 to be precise. What do these events show to you? That the US has no morality and zero respect for human rights and international laws. It may preach to others to embrace democratic values and follow international laws, but those values must not apply to the US and Israel. The fact that these crooks keep getting elected shows that most US voters too endorse the slaughtering of babies with their tax money. So don't expect any sympathy from the world when your own action leads to your own suffering, something we are still witnessing in California. You allowed your elected representatives to send more than $30 billion to Israel to kill innocent Palestinian men, women, children, and babies, and destroy their homes, schools, and hospitals. The rule of karma has worked in its own style to wreak havoc in California through wildfires. And you didn't even have any resources left to douse these flames. The richest country in the world doesn't have money and resources to simply douse the flames of these wildfires. Why? Because you happily spent all your resources on a foreign country called Israel to enjoy the specter of genocide in Gaza. When will you learn, dear Americans? I have just been to Michigan. I was horrified to see that the local bodies out there don't even have money to spend on streetlights. How is this tolerable to you guys? And on the genocide in Gaza, don't take my word for it. Listen to this ex-IDF personnel and famous Israeli historian.
From my perspective, what's happening now in Gaza is far worse than what happened in 1948. That's the first point. Secondly, I think you're right. I think that the same international indifference that allowed the Israelis to complete the ethnic cleansing in 1948 is also activated today. And today it's even less forgivable than it was in 48, because 48, there was no television, there was no internet. Unlike today, where the genocide is taking place in front of our eyes, we know every day what's going on, and the governments of the West, of the global North, are fully aware of what goes on, and they refuse to force Israel to accept a ceasefire. This is incredible that the United States administration willingly and knowingly gives Israel a carte blanche to continue the genocide now for more than 3 months.
This historian is one of your own. If the daily slaughters of innocent babies have not moved you despite you watching Israeli barbarism in real time on your mobile devices, don't call yourself humans. My words may be harsh, but I believe in speaking the truth at any cost. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.